Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on Taurus Tech Talk. For myself, Robert Parsons, also have my counterpart Corey Church here. Today joining us, we've got Tyler with Newline and Jordan with Newline. Thanks guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
How's everything going today?
Good. I'm starting off the morning on a podcast, so can't really complain.
Yeah.
I wish it was Mimosa Friday.
This is going to be your best ever Thursday podcast.
It very well could be.
So, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about how you came to be at Newline, where your career path took you? We'll start with Jordan.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm a college graduate of Texas Tech.
Boom.
So I got to throw that up here.
Like
I know the Taurus family has some of those there. But out of college, joined the copier biz. Actually, was I guess my first gig. Spent a lot of time with Xerox, Konica Minolta, some of the bigger manufacturers, selling straight to businesses.
Did you guys have a lot of pictures up or memes of office space?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, when they're beating up a copier and stuff like that.
Kind of got to be around there, right?
Yeah, and then
except don't beat up your copiers.
Correct.
Hold on, I think the real question is, do you ever get tired of that question?
Actually, I don't, because there's other memes that people have never heard of. Like a lot of our customers would put Bob Marley on the copier because it'd always be jamming.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then forgot his name from SNL, but making copies.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
So there's all kinds of copier humor that you kind of forget about until you're actually talking about them every day.
Okay.
What side of the copier business were you on? Sales or service? Or
Sales.
Sales?
Yeah, so I mean, I was knocking on doors, getting kicked out of buildings to try to sell as many copiers as I could.
like literally walking in the front door, like we get guys come in and I've got a meeting with your facilities manager today at noon.
Oh yeah, I was that guy.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh no!
Well, I mean, it toughened my skin.
All right, so on
On to the next one.
Yeah, right.
you know where the no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but as you can imagine,
That's a hard job to do because you've got to be super confident and you've got to like. I don't know if I could do it. So kudos that you're even.
I'm not doing it anymore, and it's
but
hard.
You had the ability to do it.
Yeah,
that's.
Well, I appreciate that because it's not like a glorious sales profession. You're like, what do you do? Oh, I sell copiers, But yeah, a lot of skills learned. The technology is really cool. I mean, copiers have computers in them, so I learned a lot there. But I had the opportunity to kind of leave that industry, and I joined the direct side of Sharp to be their visual solution specialist. So I led the efforts here in Texas for things like video walls, digital signage, interactive displays, and that's kind of where I got my passion for this technology in this market. And kind of got tired of losing to Tyler. We used to go head to head at expos and events and things, and so as soon as I saw the opportunity come up on LinkedIn, I jumped on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Tyler, what about yourself?
So also Texas Tech product here, so judge as you will. But I joined Newline right out of college, actually, so it's, I think, a bit of a funny story, a bit of a long-winded one, but it was basically I'm the last man standing as far as employees go. So I was very early on with Chris and Kevin, our president and CEO. So it all started basically with a rogue phone call from one of my friends from college who became a headhunter. So a lot of them were from Dallas. They moved to Dallas. I'm from out west Texas. And I was on the roof of a house working for my father who owns a bunch of rental property. So I was in limbo in the summer waiting for jobs to hit, send out some applications, study mechanical engineering. And
at that time, sitting on a roof in the middle of the summer,
about 101 degrees.
Anything sounds great.
In West Texas.
Somebody says, "Hey, man, you want to go drive an ice cream truck?"
I'm like, about it. Let's go. So I was, and luckily it ended up being Newline. So Sydney was her name. She called Kevin, our CEO, and Kevin on the caller ID saw blah 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 consulting. Well, he thought it was someone calling for a young sales engineer, fresh out of college type position, and Sydney was calling to place an office accounting, like front office position. So Kevin picked up the phone, and then they got to talking, and Sydney was basically like, "Look, I've got the perfect guy for you," which was a stretch to say the least. But then she immediately,
that's what they do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was good at her job. So she called me, and I was on the house, just at the roof of the house, just covered in sweat. And then she was like, this was on a Monday, can you be in Dallas on a Wednesday for an interview for Newline Interactive? I was like, what's a Newline Interactive? Absolutely, I'm on my way. So went down to Dallas for a Wednesday interview, thought it was a one-day interview. I was going to drive back to Dallas that night, or back to Amarillo that night. Turns out that did the interview, Chris and Kevin were like, hey, can we can you come by tomorrow for an interview? Go hang out at a Starbucks for a little bit. We'll call you. We may need you tomorrow. It's like, okay, sure. You're not yanking my chain here. Wore the exact same pair of clothes to the second interview. I was not planning on this.
I think we've all done that.
Yep. So then Thursday happened. Interviews went great. Took a very hard test, an incredibly hard test that anyone that's applied at Newline knows that this test is it's ridiculous. And it's for the better, for design, but ended up passing that test. And then they said, hey, can you go sit at a Starbucks for an hour? We had to talk this over. May need you to come over on Friday. This is, part of how this goes. You're doing very well. So I was like, all right, if you're not yanking my chain, of course. I'm not on the roof of a house, so absolutely, let's go do this. We're the same pair of clothes to the third interview. Consistency, yes. Yep. And then
at some point there, you could have gone shopping.
See, and that was it. I had just graduated college. Like I literally came down with $0. I spent all the money that I had on a new vehicle because I knew I was going to get a job somewhere outside of Amarillo, so I needed something reliable. So I was making the best of what I had, essentially. So I ironed everything out, went to the third interview, and then that was a Friday. They sent me home, and then on Sunday it was basically, hey, when can you start? So
did they ask about the clothing?
They had no idea. I don't even know if they were noticed to this day if that was the case. So I've told the story to a bunch, but I don't think I've ever actually told it to Chris and Kevin.
That would be funny. I would like to know if they noticed, because I know when I conduct interviews, I notice everything.
Exactly.
Shoes, socks, pants, belt, color. I mean, not that I'm the most color coordinated fella on the planet, but
on the interviewing side, I'm living that world now and interviewing folks, and I'd notice the same stuff.
And so
you're going to be okay if you interview somebody and you're like,
okay, I got to catch you a little bit of slack. So depending on the circumstances.
Well, third day, I would be asking, is this you?
Are you okay? Yeah. Is this a cartoon? What is going on here?
And your answer as an interviewee, and for everybody out there in public land, your answer is, I'm wildly consistent and reliable. I'm here for you. What do you need me to do?
Perfect.
Need to
write
that one down.
That's not a terrible answer.
No.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. Fun time.
I am so confident wearing these clothes every day if I have to be the person you need.
I'm consistent.
I actually had I hate to bring up the copiers again, one of my copier jobs, my boss would only let us wear white and blue. So, I mean, at some point I was doing what Tyler was doing, but I was kind of forced to do that. So you might have fit in there a little bit.
And ironically, you work for a company whose colors are white and blue.
Yeah.
How familiar are you with Extron?
Decently, yeah. I know we have to work with them.
They wear the same clothes.
Really?
Every day. Like they're the sales folks and the engineers. It's like a navy pant and a blue, like Extron blue shirt with their logo on it. And it's either a polo version of that or a dress shirt version of that. That's it.
Really?
So in those instances, you wouldn't know.
Yeah, you would have no idea. I mean, and so there are guys at Extron, and a large majority of them actually have 15, 20, 25 years of tenure, wearing the same clothes for 20 years. Hopefully new clothing, but...
Of course. We travel a bunch for work, so I've got it down to a bit of a science. The sport coat lets you get away with wearing the same thing over and over.
No, and I guess that'd make getting ready in the morning a lot easier. You don't even have to think.
Well, somebody told me...
Think about all the dry cleaning money you saved.
Exactly.
Somebody told me at one point that all of the suits for the president are all predefined or picked out or whatever, so they don't have to make that decision in the morning.
I've wondered that too, because they do look very similar all the time, but I don't know my suits. That must be pretty nice.
Well, I don't either. I'm sure they're not wearing cheap suits, but it would be super awesome just to walk in my closet and go, yeah, that's got a Monday sticker on it.
This is it.
Maybe one day after we're podcast nationalists.
Right.
Once this one goes viral.
I'm still not wearing a suit, just to be clear. I'm telling you that.
We'll get you a suit T-shirt.
Suit T-shirt. Can we get with a collar?
Of course we can.
Of course, we got to class it up.
Yeah.
We're talking about that level. We can do anything we want.
Just make it a onesie.
Get you a whole slew
A
of them.
onesie?
Yeah, somehow make it a onesie where it's just slacks and.
I have two children in diapers, and the onesies snap in the crotch. So when you said onesie, all I could think was how would I be putting the buttons together in my
He's having nightmares.
Hey, if
man.
you're comfortable enough with it, man, don't let the functionality something.
I'm just, is it the zip up from the ankle or is it the?
I just had the great idea for the next podcast. When you guys come back, we're all going to be wearing onesies.
Yes. Okay. Let's do it.
I'm down.
Logoed onesies.
Of course.
Yeah.
I've got a few in my closet I can go ahead and bust out for this. So
Oh, geez.
You were talking about the copier business. I dated a lady in high school for a couple of years whose father.
Lady?
Oh, wow.
Like,
She was a sweet lady.
Yeah.
man,
I don't.
what was she, like 12 years your senior? What?
She was my senior, but by a year. I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah.
She may end up seeing this.
Well, if she sees it, she's probably not going to like that you called her a lady
I
in
think
high
that's
school.
respectable.
What? Well,
Hey,
some
them
people
is
get
late.
offended when you say boy or girl. I don't. So
That's very true. You did a good.
I
you did
dated
good
a
job at
woman.
tiptoeing.
I don't. That doesn't sound
Fair
right.
enough. Continue.
I dated a female. That sounds bad too. I'm just trying not to come across as a jerk here. I dated a person in high
There you
school,
go. Yeah.
a real live person, which is hard to believe.
Human being. Yeah.
I dated a human being in high school, and their father owned a copy business,
Really.
and they all wore the same thing: blue shirt, black khaki pants, every day with the logo on the shirt. And I always thought it was odd.
Yeah. Where was this? Or what was it
It was
called?
in Stillwater,
Stillwater.
Oklahoma,
Okay,
OSU.
I
Yeah.
gotcha. Do you remember the name?
Stillwater Business something.
Business System Solutions.
Yeah, I mean,
something like that. Yeah.
And it was like SBC or I can't remember.
Maybe it was like pun intended, like copy. I'm wearing a copy of what I wore yesterday.
Maybe.
I was told when I had to only wear blue and white is because I was young out of college and people it eliminated people judging you right off the bat when you walked in. Because like I would wear like pink, purple, weird pastel colors, and they stopped that because they're like you don't have a choice when you walk in if people judge you or not. So that's why they mandated blue and white for us. So
Why do you think
interesting.
Robert has a beard?
Yeah.
Why do you
His,
think I have
his
it?
sales were like this, and then the beard, and then they started to climb. It's uncanny.
Now they're falling again because it's so gray.
Yeah.
All right.
It makes you look experienced.
Okay. So, guys, tell us a little bit about Newline Interactive. We'll start with Tyler.
So Newline Interactive, we are, long story short, an interactive solutions company. At least that's what it was up until recently as we've expanded our product set. But long story short, we focus on making interactive flat panels as the cornerstone of our business. Right now in the large format, anything above 55, 65 inches, all the way up to a 98 inch for the time being. And focus on anything from the collaborative aspect on the all-in-one devices to just your standard interactive flat panels that you see in classrooms and conference rooms and boardrooms. But we focus on the ease of use and non-proprietary nature is sort of the cornerstone of what separates us from a lot of folks in the marketplace. But we see ourselves as an interactive solutions company that is now adding software, non-touch displays, display management to push emergency management notifications out to schools and folks. So we've got the hardware as our cornerstone and now a lot of pieces built around it to help make this a full circle solutions company.
Okay, great. And how long has Newline been around?
So Newline Interactive has been around for about going on 8 years now, roughly. It spun off from a low tech side of the business, which was just Newline. Back Chris and Kevin, our CEO, started a static whiteboard company. You know, the old school whiteboards, dry erase boards, cork boards, and grew that from basically their living room to the second biggest contractor that in the nation, and then sold off the low tech part of their business to then make Newline Interactive, which is now the high tech part, and that's whenever I had hopped on board, essentially right when it became Newline Interactive.
Great,
Yeah.
great. And it's we see a lot of the reports. It's one of the fastest growing companies in the United States, the world, or
It is both. So there's got to be careful not coming off too arrogant on this because we do have a lot of awards that we've won. Every time
Don't worry
September,
about that.
Yeah.
every time September comes around, I've talked to a lot of my friends and we get literally a lot of awards sent to our doorstep, like in packages. And it's kind of funny because now we have a trophy case and all this, and we've been kind of used to it. And I've talked to my friends over the years, and you know, some of them are business owners now. Chris and Kevin, I've got to talk to a lot of their friends who are business owners as well, and they're like, "That's not normal. Like people just grow 4,000% essentially over a 4-year span," and we're sitting here like, "Well, this is just kind of all we've known." So we've been very, very fortunate in that sense. But some of the accolades, Tech Titans, I guess, as far as a local one goes, the North Texas region is a bit of a, as you guys well know, with y'all's growth. I don't want to say a miniature Silicon Valley, but just to kind of build context around it, it's a very fast-growing region for technology in particular. So to get some of these awards as a fastest-growing tech company in North Texas it's very cool for us. So one of them being the Inc. 5000 list. We were number 149 a couple years ago. Very proud of that. This year, we're still on the Deloitte 500 list, which most folks, when you're on it 1 year, you know, had your growth and then usually fall off because other newer companies come in.
Yeah, you're
and
not
share.
seeing it year over year over year.
Exactly. It's, we kind of talk about it in our sales meetings. It's not necessarily hard to grow just if you're coming off a $0 number, statistics 101, but you can't fake revenue for 3 years. And that's where the Tech Titans Award. 3 years ago, we got first. We were the fastest growing company in North Texas for technology. In 2017, we were the second fastest growing. And in 2018, we were also the second fastest growing. And that's actually never been done in the Tech Titans history. There's never been a company place in the top 3 back-to-back years, let alone place in the top 3 back-to-back-to-back years. And it wasn't even top 3, it was top 2. So just to kind of show the level of growth, that's what I've grown up in with the company and experienced. And it's been a wild ride to say the least. So
Sounds
Well,
pretty
just-
impressive.
Managing that growth. I mean, Robert and I have this conversation often as we grow. It's like, what's the next step? Like, what do we need to be doing? Where should we be heading, even with our minuscule 20 to 30% year over year growth in
which
comparison.
is still phenomenal.
Yep.
Me and Robert were talking about that before we turned the mics on, and that's, not want to say for an integrator like that makes a big difference, but for you guys growing that much, that's phenomenal.
It is good for an integrator, so to speak. From when you're on the service side, it's a little different. But when I hear numbers like we had Mersive, and he was saying we grew 800% or something like that. 4,000%. Those numbers are reasonably unfathomable. It's like I went from selling one product a month to 8,000 or 4,000 products a month. I mean, when you're talking about it on scale, and I'm sure it wasn't quite like that, but
and it's just to see it grow from when it first started. It was kind of funny, but me and Chris Bradford, our president, wake up. Well, first off, it was a lot like the copier day starting off. We had to sell direct. So right now we're dedicated to the channel and don't do any direct sales. But starting out, if I was going to come to Taurus early on in the days and say, hey, will you guys please sell our stuff? Like, okay, well, what are your victories? Do you have any skins on the wall? Like, no, we don't. So we had to go get those victories first to talk about it. And it was a lot of the cutthroat like it is in the copier business. It was the team that we had at the time picking the biggest, shiniest buildings in downtown or in the Tech Corridor in Richardson and do a lot of carnival barking in the bottom of the buildings. Go set up a touchscreen from the hours of 10 to 2 and just try to catch the lunch rush and hope and pray that someone comes to you on the way back from lunch and says, hey, can you come up to my office and give me a demo? I'm interested in this. That's kind of how we got our start, got a few sales that way, and then grew to where we had to go to the channel. So it was waking up early in the morning, 5 in the morning, getting a U-Haul van, going to pick our president up, who is, leads from the front type, which is a huge reason to the success of our company. Pick him up in a U-Haul van with a gallon of coffee and drive all over the state of Texas just doing the Vanna White Act, saying, hey, would you like to buy our touchscreen? Do you think you guys could sell this? And grew to where we are now. So it was
really neat
not all
story.
funs and games.
Yeah, and I can give the outsider's view because I've been with Newline 5 months now.
Yeah.
And one of the
Rookie.
rookie, yeah, rookie.
He's not even the greenest one. He's green, but we've grown
my
since
new guy
then.
card.
Well,
I
no,
rode the new guy card as long as I could. Yeah.
well, when you grow at that pace, rooks don't stay rooks very long.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I mean, we've hired, I think,
Like 11 or 12.
11 or 12 people this year.
Yeah.
And we're a company of 52 or 53. So that's
Very similar to us. Huh?
Right,
We're sharing a lot of the same here.
so when you scale up, it's like, no, really, I'm like number 30 in line, but I've only been here 5 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have guys that are, we hired last year who are veterans in comparison. So you're basically a veteran by now.
Yep. And I'll take it. But yeah, what I was saying is those awards he was mentioning in the leadership, like leading from the ground up, is really one of the main reasons I came to Newline is those awards were telling me they were doing something right at Newline, and they were on the uphill, growing, and I wanted to get on that train. Just to Tyler's point, just wanted to kind of give some commentary on an outsider's view of that.
Very cool.
I think of all the podcasts we do and all the vendors we talk to, the companies who are structured that way, where the leadership has an active role in either, product development or product sales, those companies seem to do well faster and for a longer period of time.
Yeah. And it's good to know that what I'm doing right now, which is, loading up 65-inch display in a minivan and cruising on to Oklahoma or wherever it may be, that my leaders have done it too. so that it's reassuring for me. And
So does that make a difference for you?
Yeah.
Knowing that
it makes working for that leadership way easier when you know they have a vested interest and they understand what you are doing on a daily basis.
So when somebody is like, "Hey, I need you to load this display up and run up to Kansas real quick or wherever,"
yeah, I'm kind of a, you tell me to jump, you say jump, I say how high. That's kind of the motto we have as regional sales managers, which is a fancy title for kind of catch all for our resellers,
Sure.
pre-sale, during the sale, post-sale, and with the end user. So yeah, that's kind of our motto is you say jump.
Have
say
you
how
dropped
high.
a display yet?
I actually have.
What?
Yeah, Tyler didn't know that. So Tyler is I report directly to Tyler, by the way. So yeah, I actually have. It was out at a college campus.
I
and
hope the lens can see how red your face got.
Yeah, but listen, I pulled it off. You'd be proud of me.
Let's hear it then.
So I was around a group.
you see how durable this display
exactly.
is? That's what I'm waiting on.
I was in. Yeah.
Didn't need duct tape or anything.
So I had an X6, one with the cameras and microphone stuff, and I was unboxing the top by myself, which I usually can do. And I guess it caught the top of the display as I was trying to get it off, and it went, and it hit the floor, and I'm like, oh my god, Tyler's gonna kill me. But anyways, I lifted it up, and as soon as I saw nothing was wrong with it, I was like, this is part of the demo, by the way, and I plugged it in, turned it on, and it was still good to go.
Oh.
So I pulled it off.
You were
you
sweating
had some
bullets,
good
though.
sales training, I guess.
Yeah, and we have good product. So I was like,
I've been with Tyler and we've unboxed, and he does it so fast, it kind of scares me.
Well, with his mechanical engineering background, he has some very innovative ways to do that type of stuff, whereas I'm kind of like...
Yeah, I've seen those innovators.
I'm all for being lazy, especially on that third demo of the day when
Listen,
you're in.
it's semantics. It's not lazy. It's working smart.
Yeah.
So what was, I think it was Ford with the assembly line. He was saying if you make something easier for yourself, you're lazy, but if you make something easier for everyone else, you're a genius. So I was kind of going with that whole
I
method.
like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So let's dive in a little bit about collaborative and touchscreen solutions like Newline provides. But let's take a look at it from a whole standpoint. Where have you seen, or rather, let me pose the question of, we've had interactive solutions for many, many years. And in my opinion, I think that really kind of started around probably interactive projectors or interactive whiteboards. Yep. And we've seen this large shift into interactive flat panel technology. So in your opinion, when do you think that shift happened?
So there's a bunch of reports you can look at, and roughly around, I'd say the early to mid 2000s is when it really went to the interactive flat panel. So, Smart and Promethean were the first two to really, at least kind of aging myself here when I stepped into the space and growing up through school, were the smart boards. It's a bit of a generic name now. They were the first to do it. Is it a Kleenex? Is it a tissue? Is it a copy? Is it a Xerox?
There you go.
Exactly. I got to get. I'm watching you.
I really did not come here to talk about copiers, I promise.
Oh, but you did.
But we're already there. The water's been breached. So that's what really started it all. The interactive whiteboards. Those came obviously with their own challenges, and that was about 90% of the market share at one point was just interactive whiteboards. They just took over. And then that obviously there's a lot of pain points that come with that, the growth of a company and just a lot of items that go tail and tail with that. But then I would say like the late 90s, early 2000s is when some interactive flat panels kind of started to hit, but they were super expensive, super big and clunky to where the interactive whiteboards in most education spaces, which is where it took off, seemed to hold itself. And then really in about 8 or so years ago was when it really started to seem like a thing. Like, okay, folks are ready to, I don't want to say abandon ship, but go to the next piece of technology. Interactive whiteboards have been around for 15 years now. Some of them are starting to get dated. These interactive flat panels are getting more cost effective and functional. So that was about the time we hopped in. There was a few manufacturers that hopped in about the same time as us. Don't want to say we're necessarily a little bit before our time, but we were definitely primed to help with the early adopter phase. And then now, in 2019, it is very much the early adopting phase is over, and it's very much a steady state.
So what do you think the leading factor? I mean, you mentioned cost, you mentioned aging product, and increases or
And some bulkiness to the original stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
yeah. I mean, what do you think the leading contributor to that initial growth was?
So
Initially, I just think cost, because
that was
we
a
know
big
flat
one.
panels were here, and now they're much more affordable.
So cost is a big one. There's more to it than that, but cost being the big one in the sense of these interactive whiteboards were primarily education focused. So talking about the differences between education and the commercial space, people can spend more on nicer, better looking, more functional products in the commercial space just because a lot of times the dollar amounts aren't there on the education space. Now that's changed over the years with a lot of bonds that have come out in the big states being Florida, Texas, California. I think Texas dumped some $12 billion into the education space about 4 or 5 years ago. So there were some schools I talked to, I think it was like Sci-Fair in Houston, that had $1 billion operating budget as a high school. They literally had no idea how to spend $1 billion, and then came out to a big football stadium was one way to go about doing it.
And you're like, Newline.
I was like, I know a guy that has some technology for you.
I got a guy.
But that really helped as a catalyst to promote folks to go to the next piece of technology, which as it goes, economics, it drove the cost down to where now these are much more steady state. But cost being a big one just because it was very education focused. Now with Newline though, we came in as a corporate focused entity. We kind of thought the education space was cornered to an extent. Smart and Promethean combined had 90% of the market share, but no one had really gone into the commercial space. So that was the driving factor for that was there's nothing wrong with projectors in conference rooms. Some will agree or disagree, but a laser pointer on a projection screen is a good way to go about presenting stuff. But nowadays, since the education market has dropped down prices, since folks like us have gone into the corporate space, a big necessity was non-proprietary. You can't, in the education space, you're using Smart, you're using their software. I'm going to live in that world. It's trying to do a bit of the halo effect, I think, kind of like Apple did. If you own a Mac laptop, well, you're obviously probably going to have an iPhone, iPad, iPod, everything. Same thing with Tesla. They're doing, if you own a Tesla vehicle, you're probably going to go buy the solar panels and take your rocket ship out to space one day whenever that happens. But capitalizing on the halo effect.
I've reserved my ticket.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of Apple, I think the touchscreen phone, so the very first iPhone, I don't know, does anybody know the date it came out? But I think with the adoption of touchscreen rather than a physical.
It's been 11 years, right?
I'm going to say,
so it kind of
6 or 7. I think it was like 2007.
I think so too.
So it kind of goes in line though with when the interactive flat panel market started going up as well, because people are digital natives now. They're used to touchscreens. They're expecting touchscreens, and I think that the iPhone had a big, I guess, reason for or
it helped. No, it
contribution
did.
To it. So.
And because plus the market was already primed because there were interactive whiteboards essentially all through schools. So, growing up, a lot of folks, I wasn't one of them, but you had interactive whiteboards and smart boards in the classroom. But then you get to like the collegiate level or the corporate level, and you've got nothing. You're going back to just standard projectors and laser pointers. So you're taking a bit of 1 step forward and 2 steps back as you grow. And so then they got those in the college and corporate spaces. But what really blew it up in the corporate space was folks like us, not to give us too many kudos, and there was a couple others out there that made it easy to use and non-proprietary. Yep. So in the corporate space, you don't want to shut down your business for a day like you do in a school to do professional development in the summer when you're not working, and you could take time to have your employees come and learn new technology to use it to the full extent. Corporate space, you're not going to do that. You're not going to go shut down Merrill Lynch or UBS Financial or Taurus Technologies and the rate of all the growth you're having for a week to go through development on how to learn a Newline touchscreen. So we came in and said we got to make it very easy to use and non-proprietary as the cornerstone of our business. And that method was one of the reasons we've had some of the success we've had in the corporate space. And then mind-blowing business model here. Whenever you make something easy to use that works with technology and is relatively future-proofed, you can also go sell that into the education space.
Sure.
So let's talk about, sorry, Corey, let's talk about that. You mentioned education several times, but I think a lot of our viewers may not fully understand the applications that you can utilize this type of technology for outside of education.
Yep.
Yeah, we use them every day, K through 12, higher education, and some training environments, even in the corporate space. But tell me a few ideas that people may not think about in the corporate space that aren't encompassing of those.
So there's 2 things that come to mind there. The first broad comment is we talk about education space because that's just what most folks kind of gravitate towards. We're still a corporate entity at our cornerstone, and we can get into more of that here later on. But one of the things I think that spawned from that was, besides the ease of use and non-proprietary nature, is in the corporate space, we're all still sort of teachers. Doesn't matter if you're Jason Garrett of the Cowboys, they use our technology. They're teaching that day. They're teaching how to win more football games to go hopefully win more postseason football games. The weathermen that use interactive technology like this, they are teachers as well. So when you think education, we're all essentially educators. I'm here on this podcast educating about Newline Interactive flat panels, whereas once we wrap this up, you guys are going to go educate on the technology side of the business and the sales side of the business. So there is that broad comment of we all are teachers in the sense of just teaching different subject matter. Is it algebra? Is it football? Is it weather? Is it how to increase sales? Is it Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoints, whatever? So there is the generic form there. Then where do you take it outside of that? There's plenty of applications outside of the box. Jordan and I were talking about, well, heck, the last few days, actually. So one of them I've seen some folks gravitating towards is a little bit of drone control. So a lot of folks are all talking about drones, to fly these things all over the place and do digital mapping, whether it's for ranch land, whether it's for industrial engineers that need to go see what's up on the top of this pipe for their thermodynamic hydro plant or nuclear power plant. So the ability to have software interfaced with the hardware to be able to control these drones and fly them around essentially on a giant touch screen, but then quickly be able to take snapshots of what's going on up in the air, mark it up live time, and then send that out to the folks that need the data. So really any application that can get information from point A to point B a lot quicker. Jordan's point was very good on the cell phones. A lot of it you can do on your cell phone. Well, a lot of times folks are saying, gosh, I want this to be a lot bigger. So there's that. There's telemedicine for folks that don't want to go to the doctor's office and they want to have a clinical visit sitting at their house on their iPad. Well, the doctor could have an interactive flat panel in their office, mark it up, show your x-ray, show your post-rehab process, and you never even left your house. So there's a lot of that starting to grow. Obviously, we're talking about this, the Texas Tech Cadaver Lab, having a lot of small format interactive flat panels, medical grade, to tie into a cadaver. So not only are you watching this real time, you record that data, mark up live of here's the heart, here's the ventricles, here's what I need to go on my surgery for this, have it live, as opposed to, taking pictures with your smartphone, looking at it, then having to memorize it, go back to the classroom, write it down, chalkboard, whiteboard. So few out of the box. There's plenty of them out there, though.
Yeah. And outside of the corporate world or, your typical conference room, you always have wayfinding that's actually being implemented in large campuses, interactive signage for retail as well. So, you might have actually used one. I know Dallas-Fort Worth Airport has interactive kiosks and things like that. So that's a whole nother market, which we dabble in and look at, but that's more of the outside of the box usage, I would say.
And then the IoT. IoT is always a big buzzword, the Internet of Things. So being able to tie into all the artificial intelligence that's out there nowadays. There's programs and protocol and cloud services out there. Heck, you guys are more experts on that than we are, but tying in IoT sensors to the panels to be able to figure out that Jordan and Robert operate the best when it's 71 degrees in their office. So having an O2 sensor that whenever you realize it's 75 degrees, it can tie into the cloud, and then your interactive flat panel can essentially lower your blinds when it's getting too hot when the sun's setting in the west and you're still in the office catching up on work, or lower the temperature, or when you walk up to the panel, it has a proximity sensor that knows you're Jordan. Cameras that have the face recognition to know if you're in a DOD or Department of Justice. We're talking to some folks about that. They have very secure conference rooms. So if you're have a 10-person meeting and 11 people show up, well, the camera can recognize them that and say, hey, guys, there's an 11th person in here that's not supposed to be here. Let's quarantine the building. Or for logistical, this all spawned from a lot of the GPS tracking and truck drivers, seeing where their employees were going and how to basically track to be more efficient on the road. Same thing in the commercial space. Okay, well, now we have a camera that if you have a 10-person meeting room booked, but you only had 4 people show up, the camera can capture that, send it to the IT guru of the office and say, hey, man, you booked a 10-person conference room where we needed 2 other people to have it. You could have done this in a 4-person conference room.
I think the thing that we get a request a lot about in that regard is, do I need 5 10-person rooms? Do I need 10 4-person rooms?
Yep.
And they're using the analytics from this information to determine in their next build out, do they need more huddle spaces? Do they need more large meeting spaces? Do they need medium conference rooms? And at what mix do they need those?
Yep. That's something y'all play with a lot too, having to deal with that too, because that's something I'd be curious to pick apart your brains on. Is is it
quite
more
a bit.
Huddle rooms, medium conference rooms, large conference rooms? Like, where's the market migrating to with this data?
You were talking about applications, and it reminded me, the dental office I go to, they have, like, I don't know what you call them, just like cubicles, a chair, a monitor, workstations for each of the hygienists and the dentists to use. And in each room, he has an interactive display at basically the foot of the chair with your record on it and all of your x-rays and all of that stuff. And they use that to go through all of your charting, to go over treatment plans or scheduling or whatever. And they're using a third-party dental-related software, but they're using an interactive display to navigate that real time in front of you instead of a computer behind your back.
Yeah.
Even when it comes down to scheduling, you would think I would notice. I mean, obviously I noticed I was there, but it didn't occur to me that was a use case where that particular dentist is providing a better service for me through the use of that technology.
And end user experience is really what it comes down to.
Well, and the end
what it's
user
all
experience
about.
must be pretty good, because it didn't occur to me that they were using a technology that I'm extremely familiar with. It was just like, oh, this is normal life, right? Instead of the previous dentist where I have to get up from the chair and go to another room and talk to this person about scheduling and go to another room to look at a monitor on somebody's desk to look at charts.
Well, and this doctor is a teacher. The dentist is a teacher in this sense to what we're talking about earlier, is they're just teaching you a little bit about your post-op and what you need to go about. And for these business owners, the forward-thinking ones anyway, it's a way to get ahead of the competition, because these are not, we're past the early adopting phase, but not everybody has these. I think one of the stats from Future Source is there's, 32 million conference rooms, and how many are tapped?
1 million.
Yeah.
I think only 1 million.
3% of all conference rooms globally don't have anything interactive in it. But that seems to be the way a lot of these folks are going. So it's a way for these other companies to add another level of service.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I would love, speaking of use case scenarios, I would love to go into a doctor's office and in the, when you wait in the waiting room for 9 days and then they take you back and you wait in the tiny little really cold room for another 9 days. If you were back in that room, it would be really awesome if there was a monitor in there that maybe had cable television in one corner and then your chart or your history or some level of information. I'm sure it's a HIPAA violation, but
battle tanks or a Fruit Ninja or something while
Well,
you're waiting there for 9 days.
I'm just saying, like, if you whatever you're in there for, maybe it's information related to that.
Yeah.
So that you can be reading about some of that information while you're waiting to be visited for 30 seconds by a doctor.
Yeah.
And see, that's a good point too, because I'm the worst at this. I think we're stereotyping guys on this, but going to the doctor's office, I ask 0 questions. I want to get in, I want to get out.
Yeah.
Like that's your job, doc. Tell me what's wrong with me. Just if I need a prescription, give it to me. Get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
Whereas now I force myself to go ask more questions and try to quiz them on what's going on, so that way I'm better prepared to know what's going on. But I don't know what to ask going into it. I can get on WebMD or something like that ahead of time. But to your point, having my diagnosis, my X-ray, and what all's about to happen, I could research ahead of time to know what to ask.
Well, and if it's interactive, though, you can get up from the chair and walk over and scroll through and
What is this?
Right. Maybe it's a limited search subject. They don't want you randomly searching everything on the internet, but, giving you topics to read. Because right now, like when I visit the doctor, he literally hands me a stack of papers
That's
and he
so
was
true.
like, here, read this in your off time. And I'm like, I don't
Has a
even.
lifespan of a few hours before it's filed away.
Well, half the time it ends up folded in half in the center console on my truck. And then 6 months later, I'm like, what? Oh,
Yeah.
maybe I should have read that.
Yeah.
Or depending on HIPAA, hit the email button if it's allowed. I may be overstepping my boundaries here, but that's part of the talk track whenever we're selling these things is now, okay, people are going to lose that. They don't really want the hard copies anymore. So go up here. I've got my interactive stuff on the wall, and I can just go hit email with all the notes on it when I'm done. And I have my X-ray. Here's my prescription. Here's what I'm supposed to do post-rehab at 9 o'clock. I've got to go do my stretches. Well, I'm going to forget that. I'm not going to take notes in the doctor's office, but if we did that on a touch screen and then emailed it to myself when I'm talking to my significant other, hey, what'd the doctor say today? I've got no idea.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't it you telling me you've started recording all of those visits? Because
Yeah. I mean,
Audra's asking you 9 million questions when you
Exactly.
get home.
That's
and
and
I
you're
feel
like-
if I say something wrong or leave something out, I knew I should have gone and listened.
Well, my
And
wife
so-
has started making me make a list before I go. She's like, do you have your list? And I'm like, I'm not a child. And she's like, no, but you behave like one.
Yeah.
Where's your list?
I was talking with a large, I won't say their name, but a large home loan provider. And I will go into a lot of spaces when a customer's maybe having challenges with not necessarily the equipment, but but people using the equipment for what they've spent a lot of money on and what they want to accomplish with the equipment. And so I was listening to her talk about these rooms, and they're beautifully put together by someone else, but not by us. I'm there really to just consult and help. And she talked to me about video conferencing. They do a lot of web conferencing. They're heavy Teams users. There's Teams meetings scheduled for about 6 hours of the 8-hour workday in that room that we were meeting in. And so she's got this gorgeous large screen, flat panel. She's got a camera, microphone, speakers, touch interface for control. And she says nobody really likes to use it. So instead what happens is they come in, they pull the phone out to the table, and they dial in, and then they plug their computer in, and then they show it up on the screen. And I said, okay, well, so the people that come to the meetings, what are they doing? Do they come with their materials? They come with laptops and phones? She's like, yeah, most of them will bring their own laptop, and we don't know if they're actually in that meeting or multitasking or doing something else, that they're there. And I said, okay, well, you need to think about this from 3 aspects. The first one is you need to have engagement. So if people aren't engaged, then they're not absorbing. And then engagement will bring upon productivity. But before you get those 2, you have to have it easy to use. So I explained to her, look, if you've got that in here and people don't know that you have it because there's no way to know it, so why don't we turn this into a touch interactive screen? And so now the people that are there working away on their laptops, you're going up to the screen, you're drawing on this plan of action to roll out this new APR plan that you have for your customers. You're drawing on that, you're highlighting, you're interacting, you're asking Jan to close her computer lid and come up to the screen and do that. And her eyes just open up real big. I said, it's really easy, and it's not a large investment. What you've just done right then in that single room is you've taken it from all of the issues that you just told me, which were basically everything works just fine, no one's engaged, and you've flip-flopped that by one change. And I think that that's what a lot of people are missing out on. And it's not just for that application. I think it's for a lot. A ton of people are going to be taking video-based meetings more and more year after year. I've seen the reports, by 2022, some 89 or 80 some odd % of meetings will be taken over the phone or over video, as opposed to in person like it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So you need to find a way to keep people engaged. I'm a victim of it. I can't say a victim, culprit of it. If I'm sitting at my desk and I have multiple monitors and I have a lot of things going on, that if I'm joined into a web session, unless someone is in that web session sharing content, pointing at something or drawing on something inside of a web session, I'm not always engaged, which means that the productivity isn't there, which means that meeting will probably have to happen again.
Exactly.
Well,
which means we wasted time and money.
Yeah.
Teaching meeting etiquette is a tough thing to do anyway. And I think with an interactive product, the more you can get people involved in the meeting process, the better. Because I don't know how many meetings I've attended that were internal or vendor related or customer related, where there's somebody on a computer or on a phone, and I'd bet dollars to donuts they're not engaged.
Yeah.
And so much to the point where I've actually stopped taking my laptop to meetings because it's a wild distraction for me. It's so easy for me to just be like, oh, email. Oh, an email.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this.
I mean, it's
and I feel kind of handicapped when I don't have my laptop because pretty much I don't know anything.
Yep.
And my laptop has all of the information, which is what I love about the podcast and I hate about it is if I don't know, it's there for everybody to see. I can't just hang on a second, let me Google that. Or
Yeah.
So I've just stopped taking my laptop to meetings unless it's absolutely imperative because I found myself same way. Even if it's an engaging subject, if somebody's not being animated, somebody's not marking on a whiteboard, if somebody's not standing up in front of me, I'm not engaged. And then if I have a distraction, it's lights out. It's game over. I can appreciate the interactive technology, and it's another another method to keep people engaged that I didn't really consider before now. So that's a huge deal.
In your example, it was a home loan company. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about that is I have worked with a fire department. I think they had 12 locations here in North Texas. And the reason they even engaged me was because the fire chief said, I want each station to have to get off their butts and participate in their trainings and in their meetings, because when you go to these fire stations, they're all different and they have sofas and a TV and a webcam. And so they went interactive for the same type of, I guess, reason you just explained, to get people up, engaged, and off their butts in meetings, basically. So
There was something I was reading that was resonated with me that kind of ties into this, that just to build off your fireman example. So when you're hungry, based off an idea, you have an idea in your head, but actually putting it to fruition. So the way they wrapped it up was, okay, well, when you're hungry, do you think about food or do you actually go eat? You think about food all you want, it's not going to fill you up. You actually got to get out and go make a sandwich. You got to go eat it, and then you won't be hungry. Same thing with these meetings nowadays. You can get distracted by so many of the things that are non-meeting related. So on the interactive side, in your analogy, getting the fire chief up to go through the plan of, here's when the building is about to fall down, what do we do? Well, we can sit here and just talk about it out loud, or we can get up to the interactive flat panel, write on it, draw the path, and then go practice it outside.
Yep.
Military folks do a lot of that. That's what the Cowboys do with their football plays, is what were you supposed to do on this play? Okay, well, now get up out of your chair, go up there, DAC, and go write exactly on the coverage, circle the coverage, write it down.
He has to do anything right now.
Not anymore. I don't want to.
yeah.
I don't want to say it's because of the interactive flat panels. I don't know how much we weigh that in here, but I think it's a mixed bag of
You
nuts.
guys heard it
baby.
here first. That's the reason the Cowboys are undefeated right now.
One of the
because
many.
Newline Interactive was so kind
We're
as
just
to
doing our
sell them
part.
some
We're just-
displays.
Yeah.
We're helping out here, man.
Yeah.
You mentioned
Thank you for making Dak a better
Hey,
quarterback.
I'm here. That's what I'm here for.
You owe us, Jerry.
when he bought your product.
Needs to buy some more.
Yeah.
Got it.
We'll send this
If-
over to him once
if
we're done.
if he's listening.
You're talking to two Packers fans, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well, I think you just screwed the pooch on
Yeah, I
them.
know. I had to say
I'm
it.
a
I
converted
had to say
Cowboys fan now, since they I hopped on the bandwagon as soon as the check cleared. I was like, all right, this is good for business. I got to get in there with them. Got
was-
to go meet
that-
everybody.
prior to my employment. So
I'm pretty sure whatever state you're in, you're probably that fan. I mean, let's.
Potentially.
Didn't the cheerleaders?
Potentially.
Didn't the cheerleaders get one first?
That's what started it, yeah. That
yeah.
was the
I like
cheerleaders
those.
bought an interactive whiteboard. So we actually used to manufacture the old school interactive whiteboards. And that's what I actually first was selling when I first got to Newline. I was trained on the interactive whiteboard. We had a touchscreen on the wall. I didn't touch the thing. I was frankly kind of afraid of it. I was like, I don't know what this thing is.
You sound like a lot of our customers.
Exactly, yes. And then now I've seen the light and we've made it painfully simple, but we learned on the interactive whiteboard. Well, the Cowboys, I guess Cowgirls cheerleading team bought those, and they would use them for basically literally critiquing the form on a lot of their routines. And then went out there, did a few trainings with them, and that spawned into...
do they review like game footage?
They, in a sense, yes, but a big thing for them too, which is why they actually went from the interactive whiteboard and now bought the touchscreens from us on wheels, was for their calendars that they put out. And they will have, the calendar up on the interactive whiteboard and, swipe through it, mark it up. Here's where you're going to be. We need to use this picture, this pose. So yes, they do watch game film on themselves, but they also do it for like the marketing side of what they have going on.
Let me know if they need any consulting.
I was going to say, I go out there and make sure I do all the trainings for them. Just to, it was my account, want to make sure they're taken care of. So
Can you share the story about Jason Garrett and that other coach, like adopting the technology? I think that's an actual valid
that's a good
here.
point. So I guess don't want to drop any names here once this does
careful.
blow
You
up
already
and the Cowboys do listen to this.
Already called out
But
Jerry, yeah.
it was probably one of the more intense presentations I've been in. It's the Cowboys, okay? It's America's team. I was out they were at Valley Ranch still. So me and our company president went down there and had to give the whole presentation to him on big 84-inch interactive flat panel, 4K, weighed 250 pounds. Wanted to bring that on site. So rented a trailer, brought it in the back of the van, set it up, and then Jason Garrett walked in. And it was just around InfoComm a few years ago. So I had to move my flight because Coach Garrett said, hey, we got to be here on this day. Can you accommodate us? I was like, yes, okay, of course, I absolutely can. So changed my InfoComm flight, and apparently he caught wind of that. So he walked in and said, hey, I'm Jason Garrett. You must be Tyler. Heard you had to change your flight for this. Appreciate you accommodating us. Let me go get the coaches. So thanks, Coach. I appreciate it. So I'm just at the bottom of this, it's like a stadium seating, essentially, one of their film rooms. And I think it was 32 coaches walked in. Assistant coaches, apprentice coaches, everybody. I was like, that's a lot of folks to have on a coaching staff, and they all funneled in. And I forgot who it was, but someone, I guess, drew the short straw and was like, all right, we're just going to ruffle this kid's feathers. We're a bunch of coaches. Let's go bust his chops a little bit. So one of them was talking about laser pointers on a projector. I won 50 state championships back in the day, and I learned on a projector and a laser pointer, so you better not be taking that away from me. I was like, well, and it kind of caught me off guard because all these coaches have what's called Cowboy remotes. It's a little remote tied into their video server that they could look at video in their sleep. They could fast forward, rewind, play, pause, just a little customized remote called a Cowboy remote that everyone uses. Well, it has a red laser on the bottom. Well, as you know, a red laser on a wall or a projector screen works, but when you have a infrared touch flat panel and this thing called physics and glass, it's not really the most accommodating to lasers. So I had to tiptoe around that and say, Coach, we're not taking this away from you. You can still use your lasers. You just got to go up to the green and you got to make sure you shine it straight onto the board. And then I could tell it was a bit of a bit at that point, but also there was some seriousness to it of there's a lot of coaches in there that are used to the way they do technology. And they are a very good, predominant sports organization. So we had to let these folks know, and it's part of what we tell a lot of folks we deal with. We're not trying to change the way you do business. We're just trying to streamline in and add some more efficiency to your game, essentially. So that's where Jason turned around and said, hey, guys, this is the route that we're going. Okay, we're getting these touch screens. This is, hop on board or don't. And it turns out that's a bit of the gratifying side of the job is then we get to go do follow-ups and we see these old school coaches that are up there annotating on game film, using their finger because essentially all they had to do different instead of sitting down in their chair with the laser pointer in the back of the room to the points you talked about. They get up, front of the room. There's a bit of an art to it and books on it, being in the power position at the front of the room, walking side to side, keeping people's attention. So they adopted to it very quickly, but I was sweating bullets during that presentation. Just
I would imagine
I'm butchering this. There's no way because a red laser pointer is not going to work on the screen. I just need to show myself the door.
And the reason I want him to share that is because a lot of the kickback you get is from our predecessors when it wasn't easy to use. But as soon as we're able to make people feel more comfortable and actually, the proof's in the pudding, show them how easy it really is, they jump on board. So I think that's a unique story.
It's a big obstacle we have to get over. Yeah. A lot of folks have been burned by some of our predecessors. It's too complicated, too cumbersome. We think these things cost $50,000 and I'm going to have to replace it 5 times. And it's going to take a 6-week process just to do that. Well, we weren't the first guys to do this, but we're able to fix a lot of the headaches our predecessors created in the marketplace and seem to be doing well with it so far.
That's a tough thing that even Robert and I struggle with is educating folks that it's not as bad as your perception is. And let me offer you the opportunity to come here, in our facility, and we'll show you in person how we do it and what how those streamlined processes have helped our business. So our conference rooms are, for us are show facilities, but we use them every day for meetings. I mean, as a matter of fact, I was late to this podcast, unfortunately, because I was in a meeting in one of our conference rooms using our technology. Had we not had that meeting would have probably gone longer and I would have been much later.
Well, and then that ties into something we briefly hit earlier, and you guys can respect this, and it's all about picking the right partner and the right manufacturer because at the end of the day, the end user is the folks that keep all of us in business, so we've got to service them. Well, we're a next level above that, where we have to service our partners like Taurus, but also the end user as well. So there's, the 11 minutes of hell that is getting ready for your typical meeting. There's all the consultants in the world came back and said, your typical hour-long meeting, there's about 11 minutes wasted, usually with technology and a lot of it's meeting etiquette. Those can go hand in hand. If I'm going to video conference for an interview, and Robert did the conference room before you, and he took the USB camera off and plugged it into his laptop and unplugged an HDMI cable to get something plugged in here, and you go into the conference room for you, and it's a mess. Well, then there's 11 minutes wasted going to flag down Robert, who's chasing the ice cream truck. All right, where's that USB camera? I've got to go hop on this interview. Well, then you'll end up late to the next one, and it keeps getting pushed out.
I actually just did an interview where I was interviewing somebody, and he couldn't figure out how to get on video.
Yep.
And I think the first 17 minutes was him saying, okay, hang on, I think I got it.
We do that regularly,
Yep.
So...
And it was for an engineering position here.
Yeah.
And I got real close to going, you know what? We can just do it over the phone because I probably shouldn't say this.
Well, but that ties into the point.
It was not a good look, unfortunately. And He was just having a hard time.
But in a lot of that too, it can be user error, which is something as a manufacturer you've always got to make sure you handle very carefully. Can't say this is always user error, but a lot of times it is. At least with us, a lot of other manufacturers, they do make their stuff super complicated. So in this scenario, if he was on his laptop trying to get video to work, okay, that's one scenario. But if you're on an interactive flat panel with a lot of moving parts, sometimes the manufacturers and technology can set you up for failure. So for the folks that are having perfect meetings like we always do at Newline, we never have any issues whatsoever. That means there's folks having 22 minutes of hell to keep that average at 11. So that's something we do take a lot of pride in, is you got to make the stuff simple, and that's where the all-in-one solutions, or for setups like this, fingers crossed, we've had zero issues with any of the technology and all the moving parts going on here, because when you pick the right manufacturer and the right partner to set the stuff up, and kudos to you guys, you actually use the technology. You have some of our stuff in your conference room. I've seen folks use it. We've used it for demos. We use our stuff every single day in our conference room as real world scenarios to record national sales meetings every Monday morning when we dial the team in. So some folks do that, some folks don't. But those that use the technology and try to make it easy to use and non-proprietary to eliminate that 11 minutes is going to have the most success. And a lot of it's meeting etiquette too.
We're actually getting ready to overhaul that room.
Yeah, so I hear.
And
I got shaken down for
Yeah.
Yeah. So you wait to get me on the podcast to go ahead and bring this up.
So
Now it's all
remember
recorded.
Pictionary next podcast?
Yeah.
That's what's on the line.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
we're raising the stakes here. And hey, who called us CEO proofed, or said we CEO proofed the display?
It was Merrill Lynch.
Yeah.
It's one of our national partners.
Merrill
Merrill
Lynch.
Lynch.
Good name to have, CEO proof.
Exactly. And that's where in the middle of the presentation, one of the guys was like, okay, well, you just CEO proofed this. I kind of took a step back. I was like, okay, what does that mean? I said, you made it so the CEO, the one making the decision on this, that has not been to any presentation because they're doing other CEO things, they just want the technology to work. They want to come in with no training, no special pen, no special stylus that's going to make them look dumb in the middle of their presentation when it dies or something. They want to make it quick and easy, and that was one of the best compliments I think we've got. We tell a lot of folks that we've CEO-proofed this, to where folks that don't really deal with technology, they just want it to work. Like same we were talking about nurses earlier. Nurses to date are probably the most abusive people to technology I've ever come across, like hands down. And granted, the environment and stressful.
I was going to say, you gotta give like 50% of that to the environment they're in.
Exactly, at 100%. So which is where that's the world we play in, is we got to make our technology not only suit the end user, but suit the environment. And those are two extreme end users and environments roped in together. So they don't need to be messing with technology in the middle of multiple open heart surgeries. They need the stuff to just work. So that's part of our whole spiel when it comes to the manufacturing side of what we do.
Gotcha. Well, that's just about all the time we have for today. We do want the viewers and listeners out there to know that we would love to talk to you more about Newline Interactive and collaborative and interactive screens. We show some here. These guys would be happy to come out and visit with you as well. Not all interactive flat panels are created equal. There's a lot of different size ranges, a lot of technologies within them that make them game changers. So for more information on Newline, you can visit them at newline-interactive.com. And please let us know if you'd like to hear more about them. You can email Taurus at info@taurustechinc.com. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Jordan and Tyler.
Thank you so much.
Great having you guys on. We will have a follow-up podcast with these guys. We're going to play a fun Pictionary game on one of their interactive flat panel technologies, so you can see it firsthand.
Awesome.
So wait, can you bring that here on a cart and we can set it up in the room?
I think I know a guy that could accomplish that.
Figure that
yes.
out?
Yeah.
We have-
And Tyler's left-handed, so he's going to have to sit over there on that side.
Exactly.
You come over
Figure
here.
that out.
Yeah.
We have a trailer you can use.
Nah, I
We're
got
good.
it.
This is a table of
I
learned
prefer
people.
my soccer mom minivan that I get to drive. I think I pull it off good. So,
Yeah.
I know you do.
It looks good.
Yeah. Oh, you know I do. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for your time. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks.